When I went to deposit money, I came across a QA post. The title was, "Have you ever done anything outrageous behind your husband's back?" One commenter said, "I'm pregnant with my first love's child, and we even got a marriage certificate, but my boyfriend is still depositing money into our joint account. He's really so foolish, thinking that once he saves up enough for the dowry, he can marry me. There's already $670,000 in the account. Once he deposits $880,000, I'll secretly withdraw it." I was about to like the post when, just at that moment, I checked my account balance. Not a penny more, not a penny less, exactly $670,000. Holy shit. My girlfriend's already married and has a kid. Chapter 1. When I realized the situation, my first reaction was to deny it. Willow and I had been together for almost 3 years, and our relationship had always been stable. Not long ago, we even met each other's parents. There's no way she could be the cold-hearted marriage scammer in that post. I returned home, full of confusion, and thought I would find an opportunity to ask Willow about it. But before I could even take off my coat, Willow came over to me. She said, "Hubby, I just deposited $1,000 into the joint account. How much are you planning to save this month? Your salary is higher than mine, so you should be able to save more, right?" Willow waved her phone, eyes full of expectation, looking at me. Instinctively, I reached into my bag and touched the thick envelope inside. Today was the end of the month, and I had received a bonus of $30,000 for signing a big contract. I had planned to deposit that money, bringing the total to $700,000, but on my way to the bank, I accidentally came across that post. The excitement I felt when I received the bonus earlier that afternoon vanished completely the moment I saw it. I couldn't believe there could be so many coincidences in the world, and I wasn't sure I could trust human nature anymore. Once the seed of suspicion was planted, it grew uncontrollably. I took a deep breath and put on a dejected look as I said, "Willow, my performance wasn't good this month, so I didn't get the bonus. My mom was sick the other day, so I just transferred $6,000 back to her." As I spoke, I carefully watched Willow's expression. Her lips, which had been raised in a smile, slowly dropped, and her dark eyes began to scan me up and down. She pouted and said, "You used to save $20,000 to $30,000 every month. Are you not planning to save anything this month?" Willow's voice grew colder as she continued, "If you don't save money, when will you ever have enough for the dowry? When will we be able to buy a house and get married? Do you even want to marry me?" Hearing the word marriage, I couldn't keep my emotions in check anymore. I almost wanted to drag her straight to the marriage registration office to check her marital status. I shot her a cold glance and walked toward the bedroom. I said, "When your mom demanded such a high dowry, why didn't you say anything? Is it that if I can't afford the $880,000 dowry, you won't marry me? If it weren't for me, would you be asking anyone else for this much dowry?" Willow, stop using this moral blackmail on me. I've already said I don't have the money this month. Perhaps I had hit a nerve, as Willow's face paled slightly, but she quickly regained her composure and followed me into the bedroom. She said, "George, I'm helping you. All the money I've saved these past 2 years, I've deposited into our joint account. It's all to help you get the dowry sooner. Who else gets married and doesn't save for their own dowry? What's wrong with you?" But as she spoke, she seemed increasingly unsure, clearly lacking confidence, because the amount she had saved didn't even add up to a fraction of the dowry. The so-called saving for the dowry together, and the image of a considerate girlfriend now seemed like nothing more than a brainwashing tactic. I sneered, sat down at the desk, and said, "I think that even without a dowry, you'd still marry someone else, wouldn't you?" I knew very well that if I asked her directly, Willow would never admit it. She might even turn it around and accuse me of being suspicious and paranoid. I needed to come up with a way to get her to admit it on her own. Chapter 2. When she saw I wasn't moved, Willow came over and grabbed my arm. She said, "Your base salary is over $20,000 every month, so even after transferring $6,000 to your mom, you should still have some left over. After we deduct the $5,000 for our regular expenses, the rest can be saved." Willow hadn't mentioned this before, but now that she did, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Almost all of our monthly living expenses were being paid by me. Aside from depositing $1,000 into our joint account every month, she hardly spent any money at all. I looked up at Willow's lips, which were opening and closing, and suddenly said, "Willow, let's go get married." The air fell deathly still. It was so quiet that I could almost hear her swallowing. Willow's words got stuck in her throat, and she couldn't bring herself to say anything. I rubbed my forehead, forcing a smile. "We've almost saved enough money, and we're not getting any younger. Let's go register and get married. Didn't you say you couldn't wait to be my wife? Well, let's do it now." But Willow didn't seem as excited as I had imagined. Instead, her eyes were filled with a desperate, near-death kind of hopelessness. After a long silence, she finally came up with her words, leaning slightly against me. She said, "Honey, we agreed to wait until we've saved $880,000 and buy a house before holding a wedding. Why do you suddenly want to get married today? If we rush into it, It will mess up all our plans. She looked at me with nervous eyes, clearly afraid that I was serious, but in the next moment, I pulled out the ring I had already prepared from the drawer, took her finger, and slowly slid it on. I said firmly, I'm worried that if we don't get married soon, you'll marry someone else. It was a joke, but it felt like it pierced Willow's heart. Her legs went weak, and she collapsed onto the floor. She said, honey, marriage is a big deal. We should take our time and think it through. Your mom's been sick recently, right? She probably doesn't have the energy to discuss our wedding. Willow didn't even dare to look me in the eye as she spoke. Her gaze kept darting away. I gave her shoulder a reassuring pat, saying with a sense of duty, it's because my mom is sick that I want to marry you now, to cheer her up. For my mom's health, you wouldn't say no, would you? With just a few simple sentences, I shut down all of Willow's weak excuses. Willow was speechless, nervously biting her lip. She stood up from the floor, saying she needed to call her parents to inform them. I didn't stop her and let her sneak into the study. Not 2 minutes later, I heard Willow's mumbling voice through the wall. The room had good soundproofing. I pressed my glass against the wall and leaned in. What had been muffled before now became much clearer. Willow's voice was pitched high as she said, honey, once you're back at work, we can be together every day. You need to take care of yourself over there, or I'll worry about you. When I heard this, my suspicions were finally confirmed. The seed of doubt that had been planted in my heart had now fully rooted and sprouted into a massive tree. Its branches burst through my chest, shredding my heart into bloody pieces. In the next room, Willow's voice continued in the same fake, high-pitched tone. Honey, when you come back, we can start planning to buy a house. Don't worry, I'm a little rich woman too, I've got money. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Willow has money. What a joke. Out of the $670,000 in the joint account, $660,000 of it was mine. Chapter 3. The next morning, I dragged Willow with me to the marriage registration office. At this point, Willow completely panicked. She curled up in the bed, refusing to go no matter what. She said, honey, this is just too sudden. I feel like I have pre-marriage anxiety. Can we talk about marriage later? Honestly, I wasn't planning to force her into it, but the way she was acting confirmed what I already suspected, her betrayal. I let go of her arm, and without warning, I threw her back onto the bed. I said, fine, you stay here and be anxious. I've got some things to take care of. When you've thought it through, we'll go get the marriage certificate. Willow obediently nodded, her face showing a mixture of relief and survival. She reached out, trying to grab me, her tone filled with concern. She said, honey, be careful on the road. I love you. As I was about to leave, my steps faltered at the door, and my chest tightened with pain. She had said, I love you countless times over the past 3 years, but only now did I realize how bitterly ironic it sounded. I turned around, raised an eyebrow, and said, you love me? Willow, you're kind of strange. If you really loved me, you'd be rushing to the marriage office with me right now, wouldn't you? I put on a look of heartbroken disappointment, stumbling dramatically. This time, Willow had nothing to say. She turned her back to me, and her voice grew cold. She said, George, are you trying to force me? I didn't answer her question. When it comes to acting, sometimes less is more. I drove to the real estate office I had visited countless times before. On the way there, I transferred all the money that was mine from our joint account. In total, it was $660,000, every penny of my savings from the time I graduated until now. Since Willow had no intention of marrying me, then I didn't need to get married either. If the dowry wasn't required, then I could buy the house myself. The good news was that the apartment I had been eyeing had dropped in price. With just a $600,000 deposit, I could sign the contract and finalize everything right away. Without hesitation, I signed the purchase agreement. As I signed the last document, my phone screen lit up. It was a call from Willow. Without a second thought, I rejected the call and continued to flip through the documents, carefully checking them. It was clear that Willow had noticed the money was gone from our joint account and was now trying to confront me. Seeing that I wasn't answering her call, she sent me a message. George, why is the money in the joint account gone? This is our joint property. Why didn't you inform me before transferring it? Hurry up and transfer the money back, or I won't forgive you. I didn't reply to her messages. Instead, I watched as her WeChat steps went from 0 to 10,000, clearly frantic, running around looking for me. Even if she racked her brain, she would never guess that I was buying a house. Once the housing procedures were completed, I slowly made my way home. Willow wasn't home, probably out looking for me. I sat quietly in the living room, watching my phone light up and turn off repeatedly. At that moment, many memories flooded my mind. I thought back to how Willow and I met, got to know each other, and fell in love. I had believed that we liked each other and that we could go all the way. But that post had slapped me in the face, pulling me back into reality, and revealing Willow's true nature. The sound of a message notification from the study pulled me back from my thoughts. I touched my cheek and realized it was wet with tears. I pushed open the door to the study and found that Willow hadn't even logged out of WeChat on the computer. At the top of her chat list were two people, me and her first love, Makoto. Chapter 4. Willow kept sending me messages, but as she frantically searched for me, she didn't forget to reply to Makoto's messages. Makoto wrote, "Baby, be careful when you go out. You're pregnant now. Don't bump into anything." She replied, "Darling, don't worry. I miss you. Love you." My once calm heart was now burning with rage. Willow and her first love even had a child. And here I was, not even knowing when she secretly registered their marriage or when she had a child behind my back. A few minutes later, Makoto messaged again. "In 2 months, you'll start showing. When are you going to tell that guy the truth, now that we're married? It's not appropriate to keep living with him, is it?" When I read this message, my heart skipped a beat. I had assumed the other man was the one Willow had cheated on me with. I even thought about contacting him to expose Willow's true colors together, but now, it seemed unnecessary. Trashy people like them were naturally a perfect match. They were both no good. At that moment, another WeChat message popped up. It was from Willow's mom. She asked, "Willow, how is it that you can't even handle one man? Didn't I teach you anything?" The mother, who always acted so caring towards me, was also in on it. I gasped, leaning against the table for a moment to steady myself. Everything I had experienced in the past 3 years was a carefully designed scam. They had really gone to great lengths for a few $100,000. I noted down Makoto's WeChat contact and quietly left the study. Half an hour later, Willow rushed home, panting. When she opened the door, she was still cursing at me. She yelled, "How dare you touch my money? You're such a jerk. When he gets back, he'll have to kneel and apologize to me." I calmly leaned against the dining table, sipping my water, and asked, "What's this? You want me to kneel?" Willow froze in her tracks. She frowned as she looked at me, fuming. She stormed over and grabbed my sleeve. She demanded, "George, where did you transfer our money to?" I put the water cup down and pulled my arm free from her grip. Then I turned and walked into the living room. Sitting down on the sofa, I said, "Please speak carefully. That $660,000 is my money, not yours. You've only contributed less than $10,000 in 2 years. How dare you say it's all your money?" Willow's brow twitched. She tightly clenched her hands by her skirt, as if she was about to slap me any moment. She suppressed her anger and coldly questioned, "We're supposed to get married, which means it's our joint property. You took all that money without saying a word. What is that about? And what did you even use that money for?" I casually crossed my legs, not even bothering to look at her. I said, "I bought a house." Willow's pupils went wide. She raised her voice, incredulously repeating, "What did you say you did with the money?" I hated talking to a broken record, so I didn't bother replying. Picking up my phone to play a game, Willow couldn't hold it in anymore. She rushed forward and slapped my phone out of my hands. The phone hit the ground with a loud thud. Its screen instantly cracked with several lines. Willow shouted at me in a breakdown, "You used the money to buy a house. What about me? Your future plans clearly don't include me, do they?" Just as I expected, Willow was trying to flip the blame on me, making it all my fault. I was annoyed and, without thinking, raised my hand and slapped her across the face. The sharp sound of the slap echoed through the room. I have to admit, slapping her felt strangely satisfying. I spat at her in disgust, muttering, "Shut up. Who gave you the right to speak to me like that?" Willow, who had been yelling just moments ago, went completely silent. Her eyes widened, and she stood there frozen. Tears filled her eyes as she spoke in a trembling voice. "George, how dare you hit me? You're the one who betrayed our relationship. You'll regret this." Chapter 5. I picked up my phone and sat back down on the sofa. I reminded her calmly, "I bought this phone for 10,000 yuan. Remember to reimburse me. Don't even think about trying to skip out on it. We have cameras at home. If you don't pay me back, I'll sue you." Willow was furious and was about to rush at me again to argue. She angrily raised her hand, but in the end, she couldn't bring herself to strike me. Instead, she grabbed something off the table and hurled it at the corner camera. She yelled, "George, you're so selfish and calculating. How could I possibly want to marry someone like you, who's full of schemes?" The person I once held in the palm of my hand now belittled me to nothing. I decided to treat her words like the barking of a dog. Not wanting to waste more time arguing with her, I pulled out the property purchase contract and gave her a cold smile. I said, "Willow, I'm not saying I can't add your name to the property title. You know, I really don't care about the money. I only care about you." I forced down my disgust, speaking in a soft tone as if everything I'd done today was just out of spite. Willow, who had been throwing a tantrum just moments ago, suddenly hit the brakes and knelt in front of me. She looked up at me, her eyes darting around rapidly. She said, "Honey, have you changed your mind? You don't know what kind of house I want. How about we return this one and go buy it together after a while?" I leaned back, relaxed, and stared at her. I replied, "No need to return the house. As long as we get married, this house will be half yours." Willow's eyes sparkled. Even though she was trying to hide it, Her greed was impossible to disguise. I stroked my chin and hesitated for a moment before speaking again. Actually, my dad already said he'd give me an 880,000 yuan dowry for our wedding, so I didn't have to save up for the house. Willow, think carefully about whether you want to marry me. Willow seemed a bit unhappy and didn't answer right away. Before she could respond, I got up and went to my room. I locked the door from the inside without saying another word. Soon, I could hear Willow's voice on the phone in the next room. This time, I wasn't interested in eavesdropping anymore. There were only two possible outcomes for this. 1. She would break up with me and give up the house and money. 2. She would pretend to marry me to calculate her way into my wealth. Either way, I had ways to make her family's life a nightmare. Half an hour later, a tentative knock came at the door. Willow was outside. Her tone softer now. She said, "Honey, let's get married. My parents just checked the auspicious wedding dates, and we can do it at the end of next month. What do you think?" It seemed like she was planning to fake a divorce with Makoto. Good. I didn't open the door, instead responding from behind it. "Sure, but you'll have to pay me back for my phone." Less than 3 seconds later, Willow transferred 10,000 yuan to me. I accepted the payment with satisfaction and couldn't help but laugh out loud. I said, "I also called my dad earlier. He said our family's rule is that we can't live together before we get married. You should go look for a place and move out as soon as possible." For the past 2 years, Willow and I had been living in a shared rental. It was a 2-bedroom apartment with a not-so-cheap rent. Willow hesitated for a moment, then leaned against the door, trying to negotiate. "Honey, how about you move back home? I'm fine staying here. It's convenient for work." This was ridiculous. I had been paying the rent for the past 6 months, and I had just paid for the next quarter. How shameless could she be to ask such a thing? My tone was firm, without hesitation. "No, unless you pay me back for the rent for these past 6 months. Chapter 6. Willow knew she was in the wrong, so the next day, she quickly packed up and moved out. For the next few days, Willow hardly contacted me. She called once, saying she needed to go on a business trip to another city for a few days. I could see through her clearly. She was planning to divorce Makoto, but I still agreed without hesitation. Before hanging up, I made sure to remind her, "Willow, my dad said that once you're back, he'll transfer the dowry to us." On the other end of the line, Willow's voice immediately softened. She coyly responded, "Honey, when I get back, I'll go home with you to see Mom." I didn't respond, simply hanging up the phone coldly. The night Willow left, I received a friend request. It was from Makoto. I hadn't even gone looking for him, yet he came knocking on my door. As soon as I accepted his friend request, Makoto flooded me with several messages. He said, "Let me tell you the truth. Willow and I are already married. If you're still with her, that's damaging our marriage, and it's illegal." I couldn't help but laugh at this. I replied briefly, "Is that so?" Then Willow said she wanted to marry me. "Is she trying to scam me for a dowry? I'll have to report her to the police then." Makoto was fuming, almost replying instantly, "George, you're the one who's messing with my wife and putting a green hat on me. And now you're taking advantage of the situation and biting back. Stay away from her, or don't blame me for making things unpleasant for you." From beginning to end, I hadn't done anything wrong. I never planned to interfere with anyone's relationship. Willow had talked about marriage with me, then turned around and married someone else. How did that suddenly become my fault? I calmly replied, "Didn't you see I already made her pack up and leave? Take her if you like. I have no interest in her whatsoever." The words I had used to get Willow to move out were all lies. Now that she was gone, it felt like I had shaken off a pile of rotten mud. I was actually relieved. Willow still didn't realize that I had already unilaterally broken up with her. It was clear that she had gone to find Makoto and brought up the divorce, but obviously, Makoto wasn't as cooperative as she had hoped. Makoto continued to threaten me over the phone. "I'll quit my job and come back in a few days. I won't let you off the hook." Then he hung up. From his tone, I could tell that Willow hadn't shared her dowry scam plan with Makoto, because if she had, Makoto wouldn't be so angry. He would have likely gone along with her fake divorce plan, getting the dowry and then remarrying her afterward. Now, the situation was the complete opposite. Makoto was coming at me to provoke me, clearly trying to make me angry and deter me from marrying Willow. So, the only two things Makoto knew for sure were, Willow had asked for a divorce, and Willow was going to marry me. He had no idea about Willow's plan to scam a dowry. This also meant that Willow and Makoto weren't exactly on the best of terms. Willow had her own agenda. It seemed both of them were scheming. If that was the case, it wouldn't be long before there were cracks between them, and when that happened, it would be easy to deal with them one by one. Chapter 7. A few days later, Willow appeared downstairs at my company, holding a box of lunch. I didn't extend my hand to take it as usual. Instead, I asked coolly, "What are you here for?" Willow bit her lip and smiled shyly. She said, "Honey, we're getting married next month. I came to see you. Is that a problem?" I took a few steps back, maintaining a safe distance from her. I replied, "No need. I've been busy lately. Don't contact me unless it's necessary." She seemed to sense the coldness in my tone, and her face fell a little, but she still didn't give up and asked, "Even though we're not married yet, we're still boyfriend and girlfriend. Why can't I come to see you?" I forced a smile, holding back my disgust. I said, "We're not boyfriend and girlfriend anymore." Willow's face changed instantly, and the hand holding the lunchbox tightened. She bit her lip and asked, "George, what do you mean?" I pulled out my phone and opened the chat with Makoto. I said, "You should be familiar with this guy, right?" Willow's face turned pale, and the lunchbox fell to the ground. She took a couple of steps forward, emotionally distressed, and tried to grab my arm. She said, "Honey, listen to me. It's all a misunderstanding. I don't have any relationship with Makoto. I only love you." I pushed her hand away roughly and asked, "How? Did he force you to get married?" Willow lowered her head, looking like a victim. She said, "Yes, he kept bothering me and threatened to harm you if I didn't marry him. I was so scared he would hurt you that I made a terrible mistake." "Such an absurd excuse," I replied coldly. "You must really love me." "Huh." Willow immediately knelt down and hugged my leg, saying, "Honey, I've realized my mistake. Compromise doesn't solve problems. I've already started divorce proceedings with him, and once it's done, we can get married the very next day." Ha. Her timing was so tight. I lifted my free leg and kicked her shoulder, sending her tumbling to the ground. "Sorry, I don't like women who've been married before." Chapter 8. Willow was thrown to the ground by my kick, and she propped herself up, looking pitiful as she said, "George, why can't you understand me? I only married him for you. I have no feelings for him. He's worse than a pig or a dog in my eyes. How could I possibly fall in love with him?" Willow was shamelessly insulting Makoto, as if she had truly severed ties with him, but I could still sense the reluctance and hesitation in her words. Makoto was her first love, and he held the most important place in her heart. I sneered. "Take care of your own mess first." Willow thought I was giving her a chance to change, so she quickly nodded and promised, "Honey, I'll take care of everything." I secretly turned off the phone recorder, then turned and walked back to the company. Once inside, I sent the recording to Makoto without hesitation. A few minutes later, Makoto called me, his emotions completely unraveling. The recording was cold and emotionless, and Makoto couldn't see the speaker's expression, so he naturally believed it to be true. The rift between him and Willow would only grow deeper. I didn't pick up, instead adding him to my blacklist for some peace and quiet. Makoto wouldn't be able to vent his anger on me, so he'd probably go straight to Willow. At that point, they were likely to have a nasty confrontation. Sure enough, a couple of days later, I heard that Willow had been hit on the head. She called me in tears, choking on her words as she said, "Honey, I'm hurt. Can you come to the hospital to see me?" I was irritated and hung up immediately. Recently, Willow and Makoto, this pair of lunatics, had been calling me non-stop. They even used different numbers to contact me. By now, I had blocked at least 20 or 30 numbers. Soon, I got a call from Willow's mother. I hesitated for a moment before answering the old witch's call. On the other end, the old witch sighed dramatically. She said, "George, Willow has realized her mistake. She and Makoto are taking a break right now. Once they're done with the paperwork, I'll fully support you two getting back together. Actually, she's a victim. You don't understand. She got hurt again, and it was that bastard who did it. Willow's been terrified ever since, afraid he'll come after her." I didn't speak, just listened in silence, curious to see what else she could say. The air hung heavy for a few seconds before the old witch continued. "You and Willow have been together for 3 years. It hasn't been easy for both of you. As compensation, when you buy your house, you can write your name on the deed." Okay, what? What did that mean? So, their original plan was to not have my name on the house deed at all. Even a capitalist would shed tears hearing this. They had been scheming to steal my savings, and now they were trying to act like adding my name to the house deed was some kind of favor. What a joke. After she finished speaking, I calmly asked, "Which hospital is Willow in?" Chapter 9. The old witch thought I had softened, so she quickly said, "She's at the City People's Hospital, on the 2nd floor, room 208. I didn't respond, just hung up the phone. Then I opened WeChat and unblocked Makoto, who had been on my blacklist. I sent him a message. "Willow's in the hospital. Here's the location. As for your issues with your wife, I'm not going to get involved. Wish you both happiness." Makoto almost instantly replied, "Willow is dead for sure." I drove to the hospital. Surprisingly, I arrived before Makoto did. As I turned the corner of the corridor, I saw Willow being supported by her mother. Not far ahead, the old witch spoke venomously. "You didn't tell Makoto how much money we'll get, did you? Even if you still like him, don't tell him. This money has to be for us, not him." Willow touched the several layers of bandages around her head and reluctantly spoke. "Don't worry, Mom. Makoto doesn't know anything. He thinks I'm just regretting it, wanting to go back to George and live a good life. Once the money's in our hands, I'll go find him. It'll be fine." Just as I had guessed, the Lu mother-daughter duo hadn't told Makoto the truth, all because of the money. So, in Makoto's eyes, Willow had betrayed him and wanted to get back together with me. No wonder he was so furious that he ended up smashing Willow's head. As I diverted my gaze slightly, I saw a figure rushing down the corridor. Makoto was walking so quickly. Sparks seemed to fly from his shoes. I quickly stepped aside and put on my mask. Makoto stormed past me, his pants swishing in the wind. I could almost feel his anger through the rush of air he left behind. The next moment, Makoto's furious shout echoed down the hospital corridor. Willow, stop right there. You had the guts to ask for a divorce, but now you don't have the guts to face me. Chapter 10. The Lu mother and daughter turned around at the sound, and saw Makoto charging toward them, full of rage. Willow, terrified, pulled her hand away from her mother's and tried to run into the hospital room. Her mother attempted to stop Makoto, but was shoved roughly aside. Makoto shouted, "Get out of my way. I'm here to deal with your daughter, not you." The old witch's shoulder slammed into the wall with a loud thud. She covered her shoulder, curling up in pain on the ground. Losing her strength to stop him, she cried out, "This is bad. This is bad. Someone call the police. That madman is going to kill my daughter. What are you standing there for? Call the police." Before she could finish, she gasped and fainted from the pain. 2 nurses rushed to help her. I hid in the shadows, watching as Willow and Makoto ran into the hospital room, one after the other. When Makoto entered, he grabbed an 4-stand from the hallway and slammed the door behind him with a loud bang. Soon, a crowd gathered outside the room. I joined in, wanting to see what was going on inside. People around me were whispering, "Oh, the door's locked from the inside. We can't open it. That guy looks really fierce. I wonder what she did to upset him. Why else? She must have cheated on him, right?" I squeezed through the crowd and casually said, "That guy's a homewrecker, and now his wife's with someone else." The crowd gasped in surprise, all turning to look at me. I added, "She was planning to divorce him, steal another guy's dowry and savings, but he found out." The crowd sucked in several sharp breaths. Finally, everyone spat in unison toward the door of the room. Ugh, they're all trash. At that moment, a loud crash came from inside the room, followed by a heart-wrenching scream. Willow's agonizing voice echoed through the hospital corridor. My stomach hurt so much. I stood on tiptoe, peeking through the glass on the door to see what was going on. Willow was crouched behind the door, trembling as she clutched her stomach, trying to open the locked door. Her hands were shaking from the pain, and as she tried to unlock the door, she shouted, "Someone, get the doctor, I'm bleeding." Chapter 11. The door was suddenly thrown open. It was then that I saw Willow's skirt, soaked with blood. The crowd around her quickly scattered, afraid of being tainted by her misfortune. I too took several steps back, moving to a place where she couldn't see me. Willow, her face as pale as a ghost, leaned against the doorframe and shouted, "Where's the doctor? Where's the nurse? Are you all blind?" The next moment, as though she had lost too much blood, she collapsed to the floor. Hearing the news, medical staff rushed to the scene and swiftly carried Willow away, trying to stop the bleeding. As time passed, Makoto still hadn't come out of the room. Everyone assumed that Makoto, in a fit of rage, had beaten Willow into this condition. No one dared to enter easily, afraid they might be attacked indiscriminately by him. Finally, a security guard, holding a baton, bravely entered. Seconds later, the sounds of frantic cries for help echoed from the room. "Doctor, doctor, hurry, he's about to die too. He's covered in blood." When I heard that, I finally relaxed. The dog-eat-dog drama I had carefully orchestrated had gone exactly as I wanted. I squeezed through the crowd of onlookers and entered the room, only to see Makoto curled up on the floor, drenched in blood. Next to him lay an 4-stand, also stained with blood. Willow's strike was truly ruthless. Throughout the entire ordeal, I just stood among the crowd, coldly observing. When Makoto was carried away by the doctors and nurses, blood continued to ooze from the back of his head. The sight was terrifying. I didn't leave immediately but instead sat down in the hospital hallway, waiting for news about the 3 of them. The first update came from Willow's mother. She had a history of severe hypertension, and today, with all the commotion, her blood pressure had spiked uncontrollably. Her situation was critical, and it could very well worsen into a stroke. I watched as doctors and nurses ran up and down the hallway, all of them sweating profusely. The Lu family had certainly contributed to the hospital's KPIs today. Half an hour later, Makoto slowly regained consciousness. He had a mild concussion, nothing too serious. The first thing he did upon waking was search for Willow. Ignoring the nurse's protests, he stumbled out of bed, still holding his head, which had been wrapped in layers of bandages, and shouted that he was going to get revenge on her. That shameless, flirtatious bitch. I used to be the one who cheated on others, but today, this bitch has cheated on me. Before he could finish his curse, he lost his balance and fell to the floor in an awkward heap. I didn't respond but simply made my way to the obstetrics and gynecology department. Willow had been in surgery for over 2 hours, and she still hadn't come out. The baby could be saved at this point. Chapter 12. At that moment, a nurse, her clothes stained with blood, rushed out of the operating room in a panic. She shouted, It's bad. It's bad. The patient is losing too much blood. We need immediate surgery. Where is her family? I pretended to be passing by and pointed behind me. I heard her husband is in room 208. He just woke up. The nurse, hearing this, hurried off to find Makoto and get him to sign the consent forms. However, Makoto refused to sign no matter what. He said, "We're getting divorced. Whether she lives or dies is none of my concern. She'd be better off dead." He argued with the doctor and nurse for a while before finally signing the consent form, though reluctantly. But by the time the surgery started, it was already too late for Willow. When she was brought out of the operating room, her face was devoid of color. According to the doctors and nurses, Willow had suffered a heavy blow to the abdomen, damaging her uterus. The baby was gone, and her uterus had to be removed. Makoto didn't even glance at her as he returned to his room. After that, Willow refused to rest. She insisted on waiting at the door of the emergency room for her mother. I kept my gaze on her until she was wheeled away. All three of them had received the retribution they deserved. I left the hospital and didn't wait any longer. A week later, I heard that Willow's mother had been revived. Unfortunately, she had suffered a stroke and was now paralyzed in bed. Willow resented Makoto for causing both her and her mother's suffering. So, one night, Willow snuck into Makoto's hospital room with a fruit knife and stabbed him. Makoto, who was still recovering, became even worse. He immediately tore his relationship with Willow apart and called the police. Eventually, Willow was arrested for intentional injury. During the time Willow was detained, no one cared for her mother. I had a key to their house, so I secretly went to check on her once. Her mother was lying in bed, alone, unable even to drink water. The room was filthy and smelled awful, making me feel nauseous. When she saw me, a flicker of recognition appeared in her cloudy eyes. She tried to speak but couldn't get any words out. I leaned against the doorframe, smiling at her, and said, "I'm just here to return the key. Don't worry, you won't die. Willow will be out in a couple of days." With that, I turned and left without sparing her another glance. After Willow was released, it was also the end of her and Makoto's cooling-off period before their divorce. On the day they got their divorce certificate, Willow appeared downstairs at my office, wearing a diamond ring. From a distance, I saw her figure, and all I felt was disgust and hatred. Without realizing it, I had completely lost all attachment to Willow. A painless breakup was the best outcome. I didn't go out to meet her. I just called security to have her removed. Willow's plan had failed at the very first step. One mistake led to another, and she had no chance of winning anymore. I would never look back, nor would I forgive her for her betrayal and manipulation. Willow was completely dumbfounded. She had no idea how long she stood there, waiting in front of my office building. It wasn't until nightfall that she finally left. Dejected, I heard that Makoto had left the city, cutting off all ties with Willow. In fact, if the two of them had been honest from the start, they wouldn't have ended up like this. But sadly, they were both too selfish, too concerned with profits and losses. Willow lost her job because of her detention, and with her mother paralyzed at home, she had no choice but to stay and take care of her. As time passed, her already limited savings ran out. 3 months later, Willow contacted me again, hoping to reconcile. I knew very well that Willow hated me deep down. Her attempt to get back with me was simply a ploy to manipulate me into giving her my money. What she didn't know was that I had seen her alternate account. A few days ago, she posted a request for advice. The topic was, how to win someone back and trick them into giving up all their savings. The post had garnered many responses from women with similar intentions. Willow had clearly studied them carefully. When she called me, I was on my way back home to reunite with my parents. I smiled softly and calmly responded, "I've already gone back to my hometown." On the other end of the line, Willow sounded incredibly humble. She pleaded, "George, when will you come back? Don't leave me. Can't we talk properly this time?" I replied, "I'm not coming back. We will never see each other again in this lifetime."